Hello everybody, and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick, and today we're going to be checking out something called Artpartment by developer NetGrind. It's another game from the 7-day FPS Game Jam Challenge, and it is self-described as a pop art video game. What we're going to be doing here is wandering through a series of vacant apartment rooms and, well, having a look around first of all, and then uncovering something maybe a little bit more interesting beyond that. But it's definitely a bit of an esoteric and surreal psychedelic experience that is maybe a little bit out of the ordinary, and that's what I love to find here on Indie Impressions. So I do want to warn anybody with photosensitivity or epilepsy, this hand shader effect model thingamajig is not going to stop doing this flickering, and in fact it might only get worse, so just if you have any trouble with that, I might avoid this episode. But for everybody else, let's have a look around, shall we? So we find ourselves in this big old empty room here with a psychedelic shader effect on the walls. And it is a very soft, very gentle, relaxing sort of room, but it is definitely contrasted by this jarring handgun, which is quite high-powered, as you can hear when it fires. And it is a rather satisfying firing effect, and even ejects a few shell casings here onto the floor. And the fact that it's got some very flickering, fast colors going on, whereas the room seems to be a bit slow and soft, I find that that definitely does bring some artistic distinction between what's going on in our hand versus what's going on in the environment. So we find our way into the elevator, which has some rather soothing elevator music playing, and we're presented with 8 buttons, all of which we cannot actually individually interact with by pressing the E button, as you might expect. Instead, we need to actually shoot them. So we're going to start at the top left and work our way down. As you can see, the rooms are actually color-coded, and the buttons actually seem to correspond with that. So I'm going to call this the tomato room, I suppose. And in the center, we've got some sort of bizarre, discordant, fractured poly mesh gone awry. And I don't really know what we're supposed to do with this other than, well, the only way that we can interact with this. And I think that's what this game is sort of hitting on, is the fact that, in this case, the only way we can actually take in this art is by destroying it, and the only way that we can interact with the world at large, as with many of the video games that we're presented with here in the video game industry, is that we can shoot it. So that is what we're going to do. I just want to take this in a little bit longer before I do, because it's actually quite pretty. These effects are all kind of swapping and swooshing around, sort of like water, although they're all fragmented and broken. If I could actually encounter an art exhibit sort of like this, I'm sure I would quite enjoy it, actually. But since we're in video game world, this is the only thing we can do. We can destroy our art by shooting it, and a few little scraps of broken apart crate seem to fall to the ground. So we've accomplished our mission. This room has been rendered vacant, and we shall continue on to the next room in the lineage here. So now we've got this very cool looking kind of very light peach purple pastel kind of crazy room with what appears to be a series of pyramids all swarmed together. Actually, I really like this color design with this yellow juxtaposed by the orange and then this deep blue. It's very pretty, honestly. Again, another art exhibit that I'm pretty sure I'd be happy to look at in real life. But, as with games, destroyed. And moving on. Alright, next in line, we've got another kind of yellow, brown, purple sort of thing going on. Maybe brown is a little bit much here, but it is sort of a muddy lavender, and sort of a double helix lattice going up to the ceiling here, and I believe this is actually turning in place as well as gradating on its own. Very, very cool shader effects here. I almost feel like this reminds me a little bit of the old Turok 2 special codes, where you could, like, change everything to be disco-colored and all the shaders would go crazy and everything looked really strange. Kind of feels like that. Like, instead of textures, we just use shaders. And in a way, it's kind of a neat change for once. So let's blow this up and continue our journey on to the next in the series of rooms. Very soothing, isn't it, coming into here and hearing that? And all of these art exhibits seem to have, or at least the last 3 that we've looked at, seem to have this purple, blue, yellow kind of thing going on with them. And this is, I don't even know what to make of this. Looks like some kind of crazy, very deep ocean, sea anemone mixed with a parachute moving in the wind. Again, another very dynamic piece of art and very cool to look at, but I'm afraid it's gotta go. I like that it turns into wood planks, too. Like, it couldn't look any more ethereal, and then it's just rendered to wood planks. There is also a little bit of a cheat, well, maybe not cheat, but exploit that I figured out you could do. If you hit the button And I guess I should try it here, as long as I don't get myself stranded. Hit the button and then immediately walk through. You don't actually have to wait through the elevator ride, and the elevator just reopen. All it does is just change the room immediately, and then the door just closes and opens up again, giving you the illusion of having gone on a little bit of a ride in an elevator. So I don't know what's going on here. Some sort of optical illusion where I can't quite place what's happening. It's sort of a Mobius strip effect, where I guess only the inside of this strip or the cylinder seems to have been, or I guess not cylinder, but more like a tori, seems to have been actually mapped with shader effects, and the outside is left invisible, so you can only see the interior, and on the inside it's got a very strange effect as well, because it's actually sort of warping in and out of itself. Anyway, I think you get the idea. This art has to go. This one seems to be the hardest one to shoot. By the way, it does actually render bullet decals and everything. Reminds me a little bit of Receiver, in that, you know, the bullet seems very high-powered and almost simulatory in a way. Alright, to the next room we go. And we've got a big old pop art installation here, a Bic lighter it looks like, and surprisingly well rendered as well. You could definitely tell from a distance that this, particularly the way it's put together, this mechanical device is reminiscent of one particular lighter. But it's gotta go as well. It looks like it can't shoot the top there for whatever reason. Very easy to not see the depth because there's no shading really in this case. The bullet that I shot accidentally into here is really the only obvious way that I can tell. So we've only got 2 more rooms left. I don't really know what to make of this one. Another strange warping effect, and it looks like beads with rope through it. And they seem to be getting gradually larger, you know, and tempted to deconstruct the art statements being made in each of these individual pieces of art. But, you know, let's just say they're surreal and are abstract to some extent. Well, some of them are more surreal, some of them are more abstract. That one definitely falls into more the surreal category, whereas the first room we looked at was definitely more in the abstract category. And looks like lastly we're going to be presented with a couple of silly frogs, very like low poly mesh silly frogs. I don't know why this one is tilting around in the air, but I'm glad that it's animating. It's one of the few that actually doesn't seem to have its own weird shader effect thing going on, so I guess we'll dispense with these frogs and be done with it. Statement made. All the art is dead. And what happens? But we get a bunch of images of Andy Warhol descending upon us. So, that's going to be it for Artpartment. I think you can probably make a few different statements about, or come to a few different conclusions based on the statements made by the fact that we destroyed all the art, and then our overseer, Andy Warhol, came to descend upon us. You know, very ubiquitous artist Andy Warhol, of course, coming to the defense of that art, perhaps. Or maybe we destroyed all the art, vanquishing Andy Warhol from the world, because those were somewhat poppy pieces. Well, some of them more than others. There was some surreal, there was some pop, there was some abstract. There's a whole smattering of different kinds of art there. So, you know, putting it all under the subheading of Andy Warhol, I don't know if that really fits personally in my personal opinion. But anyway, that's going to be it for Artpartment. It's an interesting statement. Again, come to your own conclusions. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. I did enjoy my little ride through that, and I did enjoy kind of poking fun at that whole, you know, the only way to interact with things in games is to shoot them statement, which is its own thing there. So there's actually like 2 or 3 meta levels going on of what's being said in this particular work. But very cool regardless. I will catch you all for the next episode tomorrow. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it. If you'd like to try Artpartment yourself, you can play right in your browser. There will be a link right in the description, and I look forward to bringing you another one then. Tomorrow, I will be back with another game, most likely from the 7-day FPS challenge. If you guys are still into that, let me know in the comments as well. I do always take that into consideration. I do read all my comments, so I look forward to seeing you then. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you all tomorrow.